Yes, I'm ready.
Alright, where do I sign for the Wheaties contract? This is like my athletic speech.
Okay.
So first off, I think that if it's about winning, the first thing you have to distinguish is just like within spelling. There's a difference between winning and there's a difference between being a winner.
Right.
Okay? One is just like having a winning attitude. That's like being a winner. Because I can make this all scientific rather than athletic at the same time because it's about time if you're trying to be in first place. The funny thing is that if that's going to count, time has to be really relative.
Okay.
If time isn't relative, then it's more about yourself anyway, so you better just know when to stop. You're just done with yourself. That's racing in a nutshell. So
Winning.
then at that point in time, you just have to know what level you're on, right, and what you have to lose. I always have a fallback catchphrases, right? So if you have that far to fall, then you probably have enough time to just grab off of something. But at the same point in time, it's just like tempting fate.
Happy Valentine's Day, you girl.
You know not to like tempt fate, right? Give her that. Well, I'll tell you what I'll say to fate. Is something like, should I actually fear fate or should I fear life? Here's the funny thing about life and death is that life at times seems very, very scary. So when you're tempting fate or you're tempting death, are you actually tempting life? And it would actually play very similarly to like what I just said about time being relative or time being independent. Because at the point in time in which, like, let's say that life actually goes to a place where it seems like it's not something that you want to be part of, right? Yeah. It's very difficult to distinguish whether or not you're dealing with ideas of light, basically. And I'll say that because at some point in time, if you say where the light comes from, then is it really light because it's not necessarily free. You're saying that it's under a sense of control, which is just basically parallel with the idea of darkness, okay, which is darkness is basically just like nowhere. So it's like you could say nothing, but at this point in time, I feel pretty confident saying darkness is actually just like nowhere. It's actually like something I can't see. It's basically like a solid. Okay? So at that point in time, it's just like you compare it to.
See you guys.
You have a good one. Have a good day. So then maybe knowing what level you're on, if you ever came to like fate, you could say, I think it's fate. And you could say something like, don't tempt life. Because obviously somebody's in like a comfortable position or something like that. Now, this is all hypothetical, right? And it's like, how much can I prove that point even in this conversation without doing that necessarily myself? Because if I'm sitting here trying to say like not to do something, how much can I create like a hypothetical situation in the air and actually feel like I'm not just like trying to defeat the air. Like I'm not trying to say like air is an air. I can say that things are straight, but I can still say that if that's the case, then obviously there's space because we see it during the night. And space is just like the idea of consideration. Okay? Space is like the idea that if everything basically comes to some form of like culmination, then that idea of like culmination, whether it's life or death, whether it's like good or bad, it basically is just direction. Maybe. And see, I can tell you like right now, just because I know the feeling, I'm pretty comfortable with it. This is just like catching air. You know what I mean? I'm just like throwing a bunch of things out. If you could imagine somebody like fishing, just like fishing with like 3 fishing poles, how do they watch all that? Like, I would almost say that's like what I'm doing in this conversation. You know, I'm pretty comfortable with it. Just like, all right, well, because I'll just say like another thing. Anything will look or sound weird if you stand in one place long enough, or if you say one thing.
It's like you say the same word.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I can just stand here and just like, all right, is that all I'm really doing? Is just standing here? You know what I mean?
So there's all like some of these things.
I have outs for everything though, just like, you know, you could say weird, you could say crazy, but the funny thing is like you can lose the idea of crazy. It's just like an amount of awareness. Really, you can basically bridge those 3 like words: weird, crazy, and awareness. You can bridge all those things. Yeah, I mean, I always tell everybody one of the scariest things is just like a blank sheet of paper, because it's like the idea that you're not following, you're leading.
Right.
You know. So maybe you could say like, I don't know, the idea that, and we're collaborating right now. Okay, this is a collaboration. You know, I think that the public revolves much more around like a white board than like a white sheet of paper. It's like interesting because paper is pretty cheap. Okay, because it's like, okay, yeah, like I can just throw it away, and it almost doesn't even feel comfortable. The public has this sense of like not feeling comfortable, like it's like fire. Okay, but it's like white. It's like a white noise, itchiness, or something. A whiteboard has that almost same exact kind of feeling. But it's just like, because everything gets just wiped off of it rather than just like a sheet of paper that just gets like thrown away. You know? So it's like, oh yeah, like do you fear the whiteboard? Do you fear like getting up in front of class? Do you have stage fright? I could say like something to the extent of like, is this a real gym? You know what I mean? Or like, is everything actually really in the store? Or just like really stupid things like that? You know? Like I said, I have outs for everything just because I maybe listen to other people. You know? Just like, hey, that one guy who's like never worked a day in his life, don't worry about it. Like, you should like we're talking about hypotheticals, if we're gonna say like crazy things, you know what I mean? Like something that is really far out there. So you can always probably parallel the idea of uncomfortability. You can use craziness to your advantage, but you definitely have to have like either a sense of order or a sense of like skill or something like that. Because I can say, oh yeah, you want to hear something really crazy? What about that guy who's never worked a day in his life? Sounds pretty insane. Somebody who's never worked a day in their life, you know, like if we're just gonna like throw crazy things out there, but it's like because it's like stupid at the same time. So yeah, I mean, I could probably bridge all this stuff back. Just like okay, but like catching air, like now, like what we're coming in from landing, or something like that. Because now I'll just revert back all the conversation to the lineage of events or whatever. So, yeah, if we can say something like really, most of craziness is just like, oh yeah, like realistically a guy who's never worked a day in their life. Because you say something like, if life actually has feeling to it, then basically that thought has probably the littlest amount of feeling. Any crazier thought than that? Like realistically, if you think about it, it's pretty logical. Just like think about that. That thought has like a pretty absolute, like minimal absolute feeling compared to anything else crazy. But it's obviously wild because you wouldn't think anybody can get through life without working. So it's just stupid. You know, so it's just like, okay, like, you know, if life has any sense of feeling at all, then that includes every type of visualization or imagined, like, experience of life that you have. It's a long conversation. They're waiting for you to come out.
What I'm gonna get is I'm gonna get some recovery, some thermal plus, and maybe some creatine.
also considering, like, I have conversations with the staff here like this all the time. Anyways, so.
I know. It's good to be able to talk to people every once in a while. Do you come here more than once throughout the day?
I really like to like watch how much I basically like how many splashes I'm making. That makes sense. Like what if you're into like the Olympics, like this whole thing started off like racing or
Yeah.
you know, like if you're into the Olympics, you watch like Olympic divers, just like which in a sense height is something that's pretty comparable to like I don't know holding on to your history
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that you always do in like Olympic diving is you watch your splash. Definitely aware of like, you know, and if you're much more of like a rational person, just realistically, if you're a much more rational person, the conversations probably relates
You guys.
more to like your carbon footprint or something like that rather than like your splash, right?
Right.
When you hear science, they talk all the time about your carbon. Yeah, I'm very conscious about how much attention.
What's that? What's his phone number? Payment? Okay. It does say pending cancel. And that was a month ago. It was on the 17th. So, let's see. Yeah, just make sure it's actually going to pay to cancel. Yeah, so yeah, when he canceled, the one more payment he had to make was the one he just got charged for. Okay, that's the last one. Okay, you should be good.
And then I had to put mine.
Okay. Okay, I was like, you're okay. Yep, I see the kid.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, you're good. So many people need my help. Usually people don't need my help.
I think there's something interesting about this place. I just want to like say interesting things. Like if you look like a familiar person that I'm aware of, you know what I mean? It's just like I keep seeing like other familiar people here too.
Everybody just feels familiar.
Man, what? You ever seen the show Cheers?
Not really.
They
I've
just
seen
like go
parts.
into a bar,
Yeah.
and honestly, that is one like theme song that I cannot sing. Where they just say where everybody knows your name. Okay, this is like stuff. And I just have lots of things that I always say, like just because, you know, that's how I got here. I say like, how did I actually get here? You know, it's like, hey, maybe it's just me.
Right.
Or you say like that one awkward guy, like what? Am I gonna like give something up by like talking to you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just say something like there are a lot of people that just are like that one guy who's never worked. Don't worry about that guy. Maybe that's where everything comes from.
YouTube.
Maybe that guy to me is just like,
See
maybe
ya.
it's just me. You can say stuff like, okay, like what? If we take life to the idea of like, yeah, if we know it, then it's actually like dark. Then say like, yeah, maybe it is just me. And so you can take that both ways too.
Right.
Because you say, like, how serious do you take that statement? You can say that statement lightly, right? You say, like, maybe it's just me, which is like considering the idea that there's variations between every individual in this world, which means that you can be a part of a group and still have an opinion.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. See that I've basically just reduced that whole idea of like, oh, don't tempt fate or something like that, to then just saying like, maybe it's just me.
What? Think about. Oh.
Wednesday.
And there was a payment that had gone through on a like it wasn't our account, but that's what they paid for like December. But yes, you remember. I remember. But okay, so it wasn't. I don't know if it was an issue. You just said yeah. So yeah, it's not really an issue. That's it is worth what he wants to happen. So this payment that went through, he called in and paid for all this with that MasterCard. But then he wanted all future payments to go to MasterCard. But the card didn't get added to the account, so this got charged to the credit card that he has on his account. So he wants this back on his credit card and wants to pay this with the MasterCard. Right. So it's like, yeah, I just said, oh, I'll talk to Russell. See, because it's just his MasterCard is like one like that he was given for like that's supposed to be. I just said, I didn't tell him anything. I just said, I'll talk to him. Because it's just, I just don't, I don't understand. Yeah, basically, it's just like this MasterCard isn't his money. So he wants his money back and to use the money that he has lost. From the MasterCard to
The real swell.
And I was just wondering because he just made it sound like he had like talked to you and he was like, and he was like, So I was like, oh, Russ probably knows because he was very confident. Like, oh, he was like, can you talk to my buddy Russell? And I was like, I'm not trying. So, no, it was very nice. Yeah. I mean, it's also funny. It's not like it's like this feel like I would get other sense of it.
We could probably wrap this up in like different ways than I've ever done before, though. Just like catching some fresh air or making air. Yeah, like saying something like, maybe what I'm doing is just like trying.
See ya. Have a good one.
Right? Just like, it's like the idea of trying, but it's like, is anybody ever going to deny anybody the reality that they can't like work on something or try to do something? That's like that's like reality. Like if I can't say like I can't work on something, are enough things being considered? Okay, so is goodness then just actually consideration, which then allows everything? And then obviously there are realities, which is like the idea of being able to distinguish like realistically, just being able to distinguish like different forms of solids to be able to make decisions. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about like hypotheticals. Then in the public, there's whiteboards. More privately, there's sheets of paper. But then there's also like food, obviously. You know, but then there's merchandise. Merchandise is one more like step, and that's like the consideration again between like, okay, then food is going to be like dark, the whiteboard's going to be like light, and all the merchandise is actually going to be then that space of consideration because there's nothing more almost critical than like merchandise.
Yeah.
You see, all of these things will be like a weave. If you've ever braided hair, is this really that complex?
No. Yeah.
You ever just braided hair? Because if you make a decision to grab any of that merchandise, then you've actually taken that ability of trying and solidified some space in between the idea of change is a constant, or a constant is a constant, which is an irony in the other way, because it's an irony in the other way because it's just comparing the same thing with the same thing. It's still an irony.
Right.
A constant is a constant. Because I'm not going nowhere. Irony is just basically the idea of staying. So then as soon as you take what would be like merchandise then you just weave all those principles together. Right?
See ya. Have a good one.
And then here's the stupid thing about badness. It's like, okay, if we're considering like good and evil, then evil doesn't care. So at that point in time, you can compare evil to good because it's like, but see, that's all up according to your decisions. Maybe it's not necessarily, I'm not going to use certain words.
Okay.
I'll just say like, that's all up to your decisions. All right? Because yeah, what? Then evil doesn't care. So then at that point in time, does it allow? So then you could also, like all this food stuff or whatever. So now I can make everything the same. So I can say like, you can certainly do stupid stuff with food. Is that going to be like making a decision or making something that's solid, like merchandise?
Okay.
Or I can take the merchandise and I can obviously like do things to vandalize things in the real world, well, then have I just made myself like food? Just because I'm like bringing too much attention on myself. Or obviously, the whiteboard is then like a door. Okay? See, this is skill. Or I'll just say maybe this is order. Alright? Because then it's like, what, am I not going to like respect this place's like boundaries? And be able to like realize or distinguish all these things?
See you guys.
Because if the whiteboard is then like a door, and it's like, what's the one step then back out of this place, out of this conversation, out of this situation, where we can address all decisions to then just these ideas of good and bad anyways, which is just like some place that really goes nowhere, which is like Disneyland, really. If you ever go there,
Yeah.
Disney.
I love this.
Just like basically the Dome of the Rock, really. You go there and look at it, the way that it's all organized, it's just around like one mountain,
Yeah.
and it just goes in a giant circle. If I'm just telling things realities, it just goes in a giant circle, and it would be very hard to distinguish if this is actually what wasn't going on there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the reality of all this. It would be very hard if this was what was really going on there. It'd be very, very difficult to be able to say like there was a difference. So yeah, then obviously you can take all these decisions into like the parking lot and just like then it's all glass. Brick and glass. Basically. Just like what am I gonna do? Like all of this stuff to like I don't know. The gate to this place or whatever it is, you know what I mean? But there you go, there's basically like a smooth landing from that whole idea of, and that's just working with realities. Like on paper, this all goes differently.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yeah.
When you're doing this in like the real world and things like that, you have to deal with realities like that and give examples and things that it's like, okay, I can go there. But if you go there and have a conversation with somebody, it's still probably going to consider all of these same things. That's how you do philosophy. I could say like that's philosophy in the real world. Okay. And I'll just say this, like I grew up listening to people do this all the time. I grew up listening to people do this all the time. You know what I mean? And I'll just say one thing, like I look up to who I look up to. You know? Like I look up to who I look up to. So yeah, that one guy, if he exists, who's never worked a day in his life, you probably shouldn't have to worry about that guy. You probably shouldn't have to worry about him. If he's been able to do that.
That's true. At least do your worries.
Don't worry about him. I'll tell you something really stupid about worrying. There's no better way to like waste time than like worrying about it.
Yeah.
Don't-
I agree 100%.
Yeah, don't think too much about that one. Alright, there's how you like get air, make air, and get out. Later.
See ya.